Hi everybody, we're looking at Edge Magazine issue 5, February 1994. And again, this is the future of video gaming, coming straight from 23 years ago. I love this cover because, well, first of all, it looks ugly, right? I mean, this is a still of a video, and I believe it's a Sega commercial, and it just looks horrifying. But this is Edge Magazine. They don't always use pretty pictures of video games on their cover, and I believe this is the first time they went so far to not feature anything from a video game. In the past, we've had some odd-looking imagery used in video games you probably didn't know, but here we have images from a commercial. So this issue's theme is the use of advertising and the shock tactics to sell the video games. Now, if you grew up in the early 90s, you probably remember Sega's commercials with blast processing, and then Nintendo reacting to all the cool Sega commercials with their own series of commercials called Play It Loud, which tried to be edgy, and you had dogs being fried and really silly commercials. PlayStation also had silly commercials with the SAPS, S-A-P-S, Society Against PlayStation, with families made of monkeys. So there were really weird commercials in the 90s to sell video games. Now let's look at the bottom left. So this winter, over £24 million will be spent marketing video games. Does that seem a lot to you? Well, at the time it seemed like a lot. And it reads, the manic star of Sega's Pirate TV ads. I can't read it because of the pad. Let's see what it says here. Hams it up on national TV, with Sega and Nintendo both spending £1 million every week on advertising. The video games marketing war is going into overdrive. Edge goes behind the scene. Let's go behind the first cover. And if you look carefully, it says Edge at the top left. So yeah, the introductory column is about how toxic these commercials are. Is marketing more important than quality? Well, I like to think video games come quite close, but if you ask me, the Super Nintendo was better than the Genesis, and in America the Genesis sold just as well as the Super Nintendo, but big deal, they were both great. You should have had both. So, more discussing of the Jaguar. Here we see the first prototype of the Sega Saturn. Let's continue. Yeah, so Project Saturn, with a whole lot of chips, which was confusing. It was hard to program for the Saturn, and that might have been one of the main reasons why it didn't do as well as the PlayStation. And I like it how they're all speculating like Virtual Fighter on the Saturn. Which, actually the first version wasn't that good, but later they had Virtual Fighter 2, which was excellent. Now the PlayStation 1, at the time called the PSX, has the Edge. Well, the 3D GEs, actually that's their 3D computer chip. And at the time we didn't know what it looked like, so we have this funny picture. The Saturn version came quite close, but this one didn't. And like they should have, they show images of Ridge Racer, which would show more or less the power of the PlayStation. What I liked about this article is it talks a lot about how Sony's going to win thanks to their marketing and their connections with companies. A lot of companies like Namco jumped onto the Sony bandwagon and produced well, better games than the Saturn had, at least. So the Jaguar, I think it's finally getting released here in UK. And we have an intro to Sam & Max, which we will see the review of later. On to more news. Early 1994. Personal computers get full motion video. So they could play games like Dragon Lair or Dragon's Lair. Woohoo. But I guess for the Warcraft games and the like, that was nice to have. So more video game gossiping. I didn't bother to read it. We have Peter Gabriel, who used to sing for Genesis back when they were a good band. And he had a successful solo career. And by the mid-90s, I haven't heard much more music made by him, but he was very vocal when it came to the environment and other political issues. And apparently, he had this software designed to reduce racism of sorts. Somewhere in the interview, he's talking about, yeah, I want a game that helps people combat racism. So that's Peter Gabriel for you. Yeah, the 3DO. It's just barely 1994, and it's already a disappointment. Not enough good games. Something about a 32-bit Neo Geo. I've never heard of that. There's a 64-bit board seen at arcades used for Samurai Shodown 64, but I don't know anything about 32-bit. Konami making games for PlayStation, of course. Here we have the charts, and well, if you're a fan of Night Trap, I have good news for you. It's #1 again. It was second place last week. Now it's back to #1 for the Mega CD Top 10. And we see the Super Nintendo still being dominated by Mario All-Star, Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Mortal Kombat, Striker, very popular in Britain. And the Mega Drive has comparable list, but we have Aladdin. PC has Frontier Elite 2, like it should. Flight Simulator was a thing back then. So yeah. And there's a list for the Amiga, which is just like the one for the PC. Which makes sense. So here we have Power Slide. Now, was this game converted to Stunt Race FX? I don't think so. Now I think I'm getting games confused, but if not, this game was never released. It was going to use the Super FX chip to be some kind of rally game. I should have done my homework and checked it to see if this would later become Stunt Race FX, but I don't think so. And here we have Ground Zero Texas, another Sega CD game that time has forgotten. High production values, but still kind of bland. $3 million was spent. Quite a lot back in the day. I don't remember Escape from Monster Manor, but Star Wars in the arcade was quite a thing. Looked fantastic. Made by Sega. And I think it was released on the 32X. So you have Argonaut Software. One moment, please. There we go. We have Argonaut Software. I believe a British company. And they made the prototype for Star Fox, I think. And they continued with Vortex on the Super Nintendo, which wasn't very popular, but showed the capabilities of the Super FX2 chip. Here are some stills of a very pretty looking game. What's it called again? Creature Shock, but I don't think that was ever released. And if it was a boring game. So here we see some images for what would become Vortex. And that's this game. Let's check it out. Some game for the 3DO. Creature Shock again. Yes, it was released for 3DO. And it was yet again another on-rails shooter with pretty graphics and hardly any gameplay. And got bad reviews. Because there were so many of these games. Just like, I already forgot the names. The cover of Edge 2 had one. The cover of Edge number 4 had one. All these games trying to use 3D graphics technology and CD-ROM. But what did they make with those games? Well, just really boring games. Boring technology. Now, Core Design, another British company, and they had a game for the Sega CD, which was kind of like a spiritual successor to Warhawk. And here it's called Soul Star. I don't know if it was any good. I don't know, but here they're talking about it a lot. And they also made this game for the, I think it was the Super Nintendo, Skeleton Crew. Hold on a sec. Skeleton Crew. And apparently it says here for the Mega Drive. I've heard it was okay, but not impressive. Some release dates. Yeah, Wolf 3D coming to the Super Nintendo, which actually played quite well. And here's more talk about the Jaguar. And I like this interview a lot because it's all about the marketing. Like it says here, they kept saying we had so much marketing, we had all this good marketing, but they didn't. They were lying about it. And they were talking about having a lot of games to be released sometime. That they spent, they made sure they had enough games being development before the launch, but that just didn't happen. And here we see a working of all the chips inside, just like the Saturn. The Jaguar had a lot of chips going on, and very few people could use all the power of the chips. So it's a shame because most of the games just look like Super Nintendo games. And these two fellows knew the Jaguar inside and out, and they were the one who made what's it called again? The Cybermorph. That's right. And they were talking about the Jaguar 2 already. Like, yeah, we're gonna use the technology of the Jaguar 2 in 3 years' time. That's gonna be backwards compatible, but we're gonna have a lot more RAM and more processing power, and it's all gonna be great. And it just, wow, so ambitious, but never happened. And these fellows, they made Alien vs. Predator and some game like Virtual Racing, and they also know their stuff. If you're into technology, it's very interesting to read how they worked around the numbers that the Jaguar had, because there's a lot of power, but you have to allocate that power in the right place. The Jaguar, unlike the PlayStation, it didn't have chips that did certain things. You just had a lot of power. It was more like a PC in that sense. Whereas the PlayStation had a special chip for graphics, and like the Super Nintendo had the Mode 7 chip. So the Jaguar you had to know how to program for, which very few did. Now, this is about marketing. And we see stills of 90s commercials. And it's a nice in-depth article about, how does capitalism work? So, I didn't know about these commercials, but apparently there's a series of funny Nintendo commercials using this actor. I don't recognize him. What's his name again? Rick Mail. Anyhow, he is an adult who enjoys Game Boy games. And we see here that more and more money is spent on marketing and awareness. Here we had commercials in London for Mortal Kombat. Here they have, what's his name again? You recognize him. Who's Willard. And he's talking about how cool Mortal Kombat is. I don't know these two fellows, but they also enjoy Mortal Kombat. No pictures of the game, just the people playing it. Cool people playing Mortal Kombat. And here's a video still of a commercial for the Amiga CD32, and they lambast it. And here's some talk about how Nintendo will soon be advertising the Nintendo 64. And one last thing, about Sega. They're also spending a lot. And speaking of famous people, I can't remember their names. This is Keith Sutherland. I remembered yours. He plays in Conspiracy by Virgin, and I don't know anything else about this game. But we'll continue with part 2 of Edge